Hi, this is Elaine Brewster, and welcome to Aspects of Energy, where we talk about ways to raise our energy. Today, we have a really wonderful program about playing harps for hospice. And this is a harp that I have. It's just a visual aid, basically, today. Today, we are featuring Peggy Cann. She was a member of the soprano section of the Tabernacle Choir for 18 years. And her claim to fame was singing that high C, wailing away on the Battle of Jericho. Peggy began playing the harp more recently than 18 years ago, after the children left home. She is a certified music practitioner, a graduate of the Music for Healing and Transition program, which she'll tell us about today. She works for hospice, bringing healing music to the bedside of those who are ill. She's also played harp for the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival, and that's in a harp group that she and I are part of. And she's played harp for Timpanogos hospital patients, including participating in research in the NUCU. So we're just very excited to learn about things. I could be a harp for hospice person. I could be, a harp therapy kind of person. And that just doesn't seem to be where my life has gone. But Peggy has been certified. So we want to hear about it, Peggy.
Okay. Well, the program that I graduated from is called the Music for Healing and Transition program. You can hold up your visual now, Elaine, if anybody wants to take notes. It's the web address is mhtp.org, Music for Healing and Transition Program.
And I put them in the chat also.
Okay. And I recommend the Bedside Harp program, which is based in New Jersey and now is virtual, so you don't have to go to New Jersey to take it. So that one's, this is different. Oh yeah, there it is, Bedside Harp. mhtp.org is not on there. International Harp Therapy Program and Harps for Healing are two more programs that you can look into. And you can do an internet search and see if you turn up more. The other references there are for videos. One that KSL News did on my work, and another, Sacramento has a great community of therapeutic musicians, and that's on there. And then a print article. The Carol Joyce Sings has a print article from the Washington Post that explains it all. So there's more references. And I'd like to talk about sound. You referred to energy, and haven't you sat at a stoplight next to a car with their stereo booming, and it shakes their car and it shakes your car? And in ancient times, they had a fife and drum corps with the army so that they had the energy to march and the drum beat to keep marching to. Healing, it's ancient to use music for healing, but only recently has become accepted again in alternative medical circles. Interesting that with the opioid epidemic, now hospitals are encouraged to look for non-pharmaceutical or non-drug methods of pain relief, because there's an opioid epidemic. Well, what else can we do to relieve pain? And music is one of those resources. Perhaps you've heard of Galloping Gertie, which is a bridge in the Northwest. That's another thing that's fun to Google. It wasn't the wind that took down Galloping Gertie, but the waveform of the bridge set up in waves to such that it destroyed the bridge and came down with people and cars on it, but nobody died. Biblically, the Battle of Jericho, those ram sheep horn began to blow and walls came tumbling down. They hit the right resonant frequency and brought down the walls of Jericho. So what are some of the ways that music is used in medicine? There's ultrasound. If you have physical therapy and you have a sore spot, they run a wand with ultrasound over you. There's imaging with ultrasound. You get to see whether the baby somebody's carrying is a little boy baby or a little girl baby from the ultrasound images, or looking for tumors or other. Ultrasound is a great medical tool. The words in tune has great depth and meaning and spiritual implications. There's an overtone structure. So you have a pitch that is A440, and you go up an octave and it's 880, and you go up above that. And when there's a lot of physics behind it. It just sets more things in motion with the physics of it. I loved my physics class at BYU. That you had to take a science class, and I took acoustics, and it was just so much fun. It's real. There is science behind it. I gotta go get. I didn't turn it on. I have an oscilloscope. That was the one thing I didn't line up here. You can search on your own device for free downloadable oscilloscope, and you can see your sound waves. I may want to go get that at the end to begin our discussion. But sound waves look like waves. And it's so interesting when you use an oscilloscope that if you sing ah on an A, you have a certain wave. And if you sing E on the pitch, on the same pitch, the sound wave looks different. There's just so many fascinating things to the physics of sound. Now, when I play two notes and they're in tune, the waves look fine. But if Elaine and I are playing and my C wave looks like this and hers looks a little bit different, the tops of the waves will bump, and you hear this kind of up, 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 up in the pitch. And that's actually the sound waves bumping into each other. So in my work with patients, the music, the physics of the music actually affects the patients, as well as, oh, that was my parents' favorite tune, or, oh, I used to dance to that tune, or so, as well as the emotional and social connections with the music, there's actual physical responses. I like to play with tuning forks. They're kind of interesting, another physics thing. And you don't actually hear, I just activated that and you can't hear it. But if I put it on my head, there's a pitch and it's coming through my bones. And I had a son major in athletic training at BYU, and they kept tuning forks in the training room. And the reason for that is if they suspected that one of the athletes had a broken bone, they'd put the tuning fork at one end of the bone and listen at the other. And if they could hear the bone wasn't broken, they were getting bone conduction straight along the bone. If they couldn't hear it at the other end of the bone, they sent them out for x-rays. It was a screening tool. So there's bone conduction. Your bones conduct sound waves. Your body's made primarily of water. Water's a great conductor of sound. Who hasn't laid in the bathtub and listened to the sound around, or the swimming pool, and you can hear the splashing and the sound of people around you? So water's a great conductor of sound. The sound waves travel easily through water, and you are mostly water. So I would think sometimes in the tabernacle or in a chapel that has an acoustic organ, it's not the same with electric sound waves. They're there, but they're chop pressed and formed, so they're a little bit different. But if you sit in a chapel where there's an acoustic organ, a pipe organ, I just like to imagine what kind of sound waves are surrounding me and just flying all through the building. In the tabernacle in Salt Lake City, I like to listen barefoot because you can feel the sound waves on the wooden floor of the tabernacle. Or when you lean your back against the wooden bench, you can feel the sound waves through the wooden bench in the tabernacle. So those are just some funny ways that we feel live music. There's entrainment. kind of back to the military example, marching to a fife and drum. If I am playing a very strict rhythm, breathing and pulse can entrain to that. Entrainment is a principle of physics. And it's the principle that if there's a room full of clocks, mechanical clocks with a pendulum, they will line up. And it's a principle of physics called entrainment. I did work with babies on monitors in the NICU. And I have some babies' heart rates are really fast anyway, particularly preemie babies. But the heart rate, one baby would go from 153 down to 120, 165 down to 151. And those are just the two I have written down in front of me. But if a little baby's heart rate is, if they're working so hard just to keep their pulse, because their pulse is so fast, and that pulse can go down, then that baby's energy can go to growing and nutrition and other things. So calming babies, and we all know lullabies work. It's time-old tradition through many, many cultures to sing lullabies, and they work in many ways. I have had the opportunity of playing for patients, adult patients on monitors, and just watching the heart rate, the blood pressure, all those measurable body measurements go down and line up and do what they need to do. So the philosophy is music provides a healing environment and the body does what they need to do. Do you have any questions for me? There are anecdotal stories. So many times I'd walk in a hospital room at Timpanogos and they'd say, "Oh, you were just what I needed today." Or going to hospice patients' homes, they'd say, "How did you know I needed you today?" Hospice, I think you had some questions about hospice patients. The music can provide healing in many dimensions. And we know that sometimes healing doesn't mean getting well. Healing can mean comfort and peace. And the music can bring that to the bedside. The music provides a healing environment and the patient does what they need to do. So that's the philosophy. Do you have any questions for me?
I would love to hear maybe, some experiences that you've had with hospice patients.
There was one lady who said, the songs that you're playing are songs that my father used to sing to me. If I was sick, he would hold me and sing me these songs. And I feel like when you play that my father's holding me and comforting me. Other songs, other stories, a lady that had been a singer had been ill and hadn't gone to church for a long time. And as I played familiar songs, she began to sing along, and her husband, the caregiver, said, "I haven't heard her sing for so long because we haven't gone to church." And so here this singer got to fill their home with music again. As I played.
That prompts another question, Peggy.
Yeah.
Do you have to, or do you feel like you need to be responsible to provide music from the 30s, from the 40s, from the 50s, a whole bunch of,
I do choose to,
a whole bunch of different things?
Every patient's different, and the same patient might be different this week than they were last week. So there was a fun 100-ish-year-old man in Provo that loved the old songs, 5'2", Eyes of Blue, and she'll be coming around the mountain and fun songs like that. And as his condition changed one day, it was like, no, I think he needs to rest today. We're doing lullabies. So it's appropriate to the patient and at the time and the state that the patient is in. Music in the moment.
And does that come from your experience or
It comes from experience and training. I had one experience where I went to a Tabernacle choir associate who was quite at the end of her life and actively dying. And her husband said, well, she's always like KBYU radio. Well, I've got the FM radio on, and it was playing something like The Flight of the Bumblebee that was very agitated. And even though she liked classical music, that was not appropriate at that time.
No.
And what'd you play for her?
I don't remember anymore, but maybe I would play. I'm not sure how the sound quality is coming across. Is it unpleasant?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So if I walked in your room and I didn't know who you were or how you were feeling that day, and in the hospital, you don't. In a hospice setting, you usually get a recommendation from a nurse who says, this is patient A, they have such and such a case, and maybe you'll meet the family, you see their home, you know more about them. But if I just walked in your hospital room and didn't know who you were, and then I'd kind of feel out what was going on and see how you responded to that. If you can visibly see people relax to the music.
Have you ever had the opposite?
Once in a dozen years.
All right, there's always got to be an exception.
Yeah. Well, just, you don't know what condition a person's in or what. Yeah.
And was there a different tone or a group of songs you chose then?
No, I wished them well and let them be in peace. There's body language too. This particular patient was in a nursing home, and they'd turn their head to the wall and then just asked me to stop. So I stopped. But there've been hundreds that were the opposite.
Do you want to tell us just a little bit about the harp? I'm seeing some dark strings there on your harp and some different color strings.
Sure. I'm going to go grab the oscilloscope because that's so much fun. And I charged the device just so I could do that. Well, you do it. You do it.
Yeah. the harp is this really wonderful, unfair instrument because the beauty of the sound is going out to other people. And of course, with any music, you know, whether you're singing or playing an instrument, you get to, you know, hear the sound yourself. But this instrument is leaning against your body. And so you actually have the vibrations from the instrument coming into you while the sounds are going out. It does double
Yep.
duty.
It rests on your collarbone, so you get the bone conduction.
That's amazing.
Mhm. So this is an oscilloscope. Let's see. Oh, how's the light?
Yeah.
There we go.
Pull it, pull it back a little bit, Peggy. There you go.
So you can actually see your sound waves with an oscilloscope, and it's kind of fun just to make different sounds and see what kind of sound waves you make.
The E's were very uniform,
Ah,
a little bit more so than the ah, which is not surprising.
And then if you get vibrato, of course the waveform is different. It's harder to tune than with vibrato than it is with a straight tone, because you can line up the sound waves with the straight tone. But there's places for all tools, different places, different times.
Yeah.
I have a closing quote. It's from someone by the name of Margot Drowan. Does experiencing less anxiety, such as that associated with disease and hospital procedures, have only an intrinsic factor of its own, as our research has indicated, or is there a larger effect on physiological functioning, as I am suggesting? So yes, it's pleasing, you feel good, but does it help regulate your body?
See, these are all things that probably none of us have even thought about. And that music is a real instrument of energy, just like other things that I know that everyone on this call so far understands about different things that raise our energy. And, you know, so here's something.
Who doesn't put on a march to well, maybe I'm the only one that puts on a march in the car to go onto the 4th of July parade. Put on something lively to clean the house.
Yes. We have a neighbor. She always used to sing musical theater, and she made all of her children, you know, this week we're doing My Fair Lady. And so they all had their different assignments, and they would all sit and sing through the house. Why didn't I think of doing that? That would have been a great thing. Another thing that I've noticed about sound, just as we're leaving here, is that things come to your mind, songs come to your mind for a reason. And the reason is some kind of energy experience that you're having right then. And so I found out from an experience I had years ago to really pay attention to when a song surfaces in my mind, it surfaced for a reason. And I don't have to like really get into it, but I need to, you know, to just kind of think about, why did that come up a little bit? Was it sad? Was it happy?
Listen and pay attention. I have a story about that. My mom's home was in California, and as she aged, we would go spend a week or two with her and put some meals in the freezer and just keep her company and keep her going in her own home. And one day as I was packing to leave after a visit, she was whistling, "What'll I do when you are far away from me and blue? What'll I do?" She didn't verbalize that. She didn't know that, but the song was in her head and came out.
Oh, that was nice that you noticed that.
Definitely.
My experience was my husband and youngest daughter and I were in the Winnebago. This was I guess a 21 footer. And we had driven in this thing umpteen times. Like I knew how that thing drove. And so we were going to get our seatbelts on eventually. My husband had his up in the driver's seat, but my daughter had just gotten through at the soccer game. And she was in the very back, taking off her soccer shoes and maybe trading out her jersey. So I was standing in the aisle talking to her, and all of a sudden the Winnebago stopped faster than I have ever known it to stop. My husband had just seen in that glaring afternoon sun, he had just seen a stop sign that he was responsible for. And man, he stopped that thing on a dime. And there is no way I was going to let that 10-year-old daughter go flying across the Winnebago. So I braced my arms against the side, and she did. She bounced into me, but in doing that, it torqued my arms back, and they felt like they had both just been ripped off. So now the Winnebago is stopped. I'm on the floor just in abject misery. And we did have some aspirin in the car, but I knew in the Winnebago, but I knew that it would take like 20 minutes for it to take effect. And this was just killing me. I was in graduate school at the time, and my paper that I was working on that summer was a grouping of maybe 12 Irish laments. Laments are things that they sing to people when they're taking the casket to the grave, and the men in the town are carrying the casket. One of those 12 came to my mind, and it was by Turlough O'Carolan, and I sang it over and over. And as I sang it, that abject hurt started going away. So after about 4 minutes, when I decided I wasn't totally dying, I decided to sing to myself some of those other laments, and the hurt came back. None of the others did the same thing that O'Carolan's did. So after I'd experimented, man, I went back to singing O'Carolan's over and over and over, until my body could calm down. And from that, what I decided was all the other laments were written for living people to be sad about their loved one. Only Carolan's was written for the dead person or the dying person. Because the laments, even though they were all beautiful and they were all kind of sad, they apparently had a different energy associated with them.
Yep.
I like your story of your mom.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Very fun, and we've learned a lot. And next week, we're having Barbara Bertuzzi on, who's going to tell about reflexology. And that will be very fun. I had a reflexologist actually on the Tabernacle Choir tour work with my feet. And as she was working with my feet, she said, "You don't have a thyroid." She didn't look here to see a scar. She never knew that I'd had an operation. She could tell it from my feet. So this will be some more fun stuff. And meanwhile, while we've got this beautiful weather, let's greet people with a smile, because our smile will raise their energy and it will raise ours. Thank you so much, Peggy. Thank you for all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Um,